we're going to talk to Chen about her film, First Vote. Welcome to Films Gone Wild.
Thanks for having me, John.
Okay. And now, and on this interview, you can use my name. This is great. Since for anybody who's tuning in, I'm doing a series of interviews, and sometimes I'm myself, and sometimes I'm an avatar. Okay, let's start it off as we usually do. Introduce our audience to First Vote. Tell us about your film.
Yeah, so my film First Vote is an hour-long documentary that follows my personal journey into America's battleground states to meet voters in my own community from both sides of the aisle during the 2018 midterm elections. And the film explores the intersection of immigration, voting rights, and racial justice.
I really enjoyed your movie, as I told you before we started all this. And one of the reasons I really enjoyed it is that you show not just two polar opposites politically, with your subjects. You have multiple subjects, and they kind of fall in different areas on that political timeline, so to speak. Some really conservative, some moderate conservative, some really liberal. More so. And what I thought was great is the lack of judgment on from the camera view of these people. You let them speak for themselves. You don't you don't tip off anybody on this person is an idiot, or or this person is our hero, or anything like that. And I found I admired it because, as a viewer who is very politically active, it would have been tough for me. Like, there are a couple subjects in this film that I was like shaking my head, going, "Oh my God, this guy! Oh my God, this woman!" And so my question to you, my first question is on your approach to this. One, how did you find the subjects who wound up in the documentary? Because I'm going to assume that there were other ones that maybe didn't make the cut. So how did you find them? How did you get them to trust you? And then what was your process working with them?
Yeah, so it actually, you're right, John. I filmed a lot of footage. I like to film a lot. So there are other characters, other footage that didn't end up in the film. So I started the project in 2017, and it took about early 2017, and it took about 5-6 months for me to actually find these characters. So it actually took quite a while. I actually didn't know anybody from the Republican side. So, it was really just talking to people I know, and they introduced me to people. And so that went on for a long time. And I did talk to a lot of members of Chinese Americans for Trump, but most of them weren't willing to participate in a documentary. So it wasn't until a few months into that development process, a few people told me that they listened to Lance, his podcast on WeChat. So that's how I knew about Lance. So I, because he teaches at University of Dayton, so I found his email address and I emailed him and told him about what I was doing. And we talked on the phone. I asked him if I could film him recording his podcast in Ohio, and he said yes. So that was the first time I traveled to Dayton, Ohio to meet him and film him. In that scene that you saw in the first act in the film when he was doing his podcast, that was actually the first day I filmed with him. Yeah, and Sue, because she ran for congressional 4th district seat in North Carolina, she actually won the Republican primary, but she lost in the general election. So she was actually quite well known among the Chinese immigrant community where I live. So, people, when I told them I was, I had this project that I was working on, people told me about her. And, again, I approached her and, she was willing to be part of the documentary. So Kaiser, I found him because he wrote an article actually specifically about why so many first generation Chinese immigrants support Trump, which was something that he was quite puzzled about too. So, he wrote an article analyzing the reasons behind their support in 2016. And in 2016, he actually moved back to the United States from Beijing, where he lived for the last 20 years. And he specifically, he moved to a battleground state in 2016 because he really wanted his vote to make a difference. And the divide, in the election in 2016 also really affected him and his family on a very personal level, as you saw in the film, with his wife. So, that was actually something that really intrigued me, is how the divide in 2016 affected, this family on a very personal level. And Jennifer, I actually met her a few months into production, actually. I started out with 3 characters, and I met her in Durham, North Carolina, where she gave a talk on Asian American identity in the South. So at the time, because I've already filmed for a few months, I was exploring this question of the connection between one's identity and how they vote. So her talk immediately resonated with me. So I approached her and asked her if I could film her classes at UNC Chapel Hill.
Well, here's something that's particularly specific to this film, and a film like this that I was very curious and I was happy to have you on to talk about. And that is, when you're talking about people that are out there with their political ideologies and beliefs, as the filmmaker, as I'm listening to people, as I'm listening to some of them, in the film and talking about, the policies that they thought, that they supported, I'm like listening to you and going, well, that is the most basic application of that policy, and to be blunt, a simplistic view of it. And, but yet I was thinking, from your point of view as a filmmaker, like going, well, do I ask a follow-up question about that? Or do I just let them continue because this, the point of my film is not to debate them, although that might make for interesting footage, and it might damage their trust in me to allow them to film them more. So I'm interested to hear you talk about, what was going through your mind, was that literally in the forefront of your mind of like going, let them hang themselves, as they say, or my documentary is specifically about this experience. It's not about making them delve deeper into, into why they support.
Yeah, so, I'm interested, as a filmmaker, I'm interested, this is an observational style film. So that's the approach I, as a filmmaker, I'm interested in. So, I really film a lot of, observational footage, and I spend a lot of time with them. So I filmed in 2016 and 2018. So, and I also spend time with them, not just on camera, but off camera, to build that relationship, that trust, and that access, like you said. And so, it takes time, first of all, and second of all, it's observational film. So I was following events in their life that were unfolding in reality that I couldn't possibly predict what was going to happen the next minute. So all I could have done is just turn on my camera and film as much as as possible. And in terms of and and I really wanted to let them speak for themselves, like you said. Like I really want them to speak for themselves. So I didn't necessarily debate with them, but I did ask them a lot of questions, a lot of questions to get them really to talk about their beliefs and how they form their political views and their own stories and their own experiences.
I do have to say that one moment I found hilarious, and I was also curious as to how safe you felt in the moment when you're doing the interview with Sue and in her house, and she's got her freaking AK-47 and her gun there, and she's trying to prop up her gun like it's a rake or something, and I was like going, oh my God, it's like that thing could fall over and go off, and I was again looking forward to talking to you to go, well, as that is happening, is that what you were thinking, or were you just like going get her in the frame and what have you kind of thoughts?
Yeah, no, John, I was really more focused on like, oh, I gotta get the focus right. I gotta get the exposure right. And, I was filming and, I was like, that day I asked if, she can show me, because you saw her campaign photo,
Right.
right. So I was asking her, so why did you decide to take that photo, and can you show me what you had in those photos, and so we were just talking about that, and she actually got really excited and she wanted to show me. So
Of course.
I was waiting upstairs, and she came up, and she showed me her guns, and I was really just trying to get the footage. So because it wasn't, I didn't tell her, I didn't ask her to do it again. I don't do that, right? So like I was really filming the reality actually happening right in front of me. So I was the only person there, and the room was actually quite dark. So I was trying to get the white balance, exposure. I gotta focus right, and she was moving around.
That's hilarious. Well, again, I mean, I think that's one of those, inadvertent movie magic moments, that you're not expecting to get, but it added it informed us so much about her beyond anything she was saying. Just watching how she was handling that, and what her attitude was, I did. It was incredibly amusing, and a great little part of it. Here's something I love asking documentarians, and this film I think is a good one for me to ask you this question. What was the point, either filming as you're getting footage or in the editing bay as you're cutting the film together? What was your Eureka moment where you said, oh, this is the film right here? This moment that I'm looking at, either as it's being taped, the interview it's happening, or this segment as I'm cutting it together, this is the whole point of this movie. What was your Eureka moment?
Well, so that's a great question, Joe. Well, the editing took a year, and I've probably done 100 different versions of the film. Picture lock is not really a picture lock, right? I worked with 2 editors, and yeah, I mean, it really is an organic process. It really, we had a storyboard, so we had, we were trying to figure out what is our act 1, what is our act 2, what is our act 3, and how do we connect these 4 character stories together when they don't meet in real life. Yeah, and in the end, it's also a lot of very, very small things, like a lot of very small details. It was really towards the end. It was really like towards the end. actually early 2020 that, you know, it just felt right. You know, I wanted a film that would engage audience, um, and and you know, tell a story that reflects my own, what the journey that I want, that what I went on, and this, you know, and also uh, having an arc, having a story arc, and having, you know, a storyline with beginning, middle, and end. So yeah, I mean, I feel like I could have probably worked on it even a little bit more, but I'm just, you know, little things. I'm just really obsessed in the editing room. And my husband, you know, he was working from home in 2020, and so he listened to me editing over and over again, and he was like, "Why are you listening to the same thing over and over again? It sounds exactly the same to me." But I was like, "No, there's a little difference in there." And you know what? He can actually, he memorized all the lines, almost all the lines in the film, because I was editing so much. I was just replaying the same soundbite over and over again. So
Wait a minute. So your husband could do a stage show, the first vote experience?
probably.
That'd be hilarious. That'd be hilarious. Well, listen, you know, every filmmaker goes through that, right? You know, where you go, you know, and it's like, you know, the my feature film, Ladies of the House, has been out for like 4 years now, and you know, and if I watch it again, like if I happen to watch it again, I'll still see moments I go, you know, I could get in there, I could do a little thing, right? And you know that never leaves you. I mean, that's why you know what the George Lucas thing, why people had to finally take the keys, you know, away from him, you know, from the Star Wars movies, because he just wouldn't leave it alone, right? Well, listen,
Yeah.
you know, I'm glad that you left it alone for what it is right now, because I think it is a fascinating look, um, you know, and not just to the political process, because a lot of people go into that, but specifically, you know, the Asian American, and in this case, the Chinese American process of being incorporated into our very specific, you know, voting and political, wars and things like that. I think it, you know, again, it gave me insight into something I talk about every single darn day through Facebook debates and what have you. And yet seeing these people talk, again, that I certainly did not agree with, but yet seeing where it came from, I think you did a really wonderful job with that.
Thank you, John. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Absolutely. Well, listen, it's been wonderful having you on the show. And congratulations again on being at Hot Springs Documentary Film Festival. And again, we'll look for the film as you continue your film festival tour.
Thank you so much for having me, John. It's a pleasure talking to you.
Okay, there